Hello, guys. Welcome to the Voices Gathering Live with your host, Diamond from Voices Gathering Live. What's up? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in and have a conversation with me. Come and talk to me. Come and talk to me. We got a great show today, and I'm hoping that all of you who are watching today's show will come into this space, click the like button, give us a thumbs up. Trust me, you're not going to hate that you did that. You're going to love the fact that you came in, had a seat, took a deep breath, gave the show a thumbs up, and sat back and get ready for an interesting conversation. I want to take a moment to talk to you, my viewers, about something that I thought was very interesting to bring to the show today. It's called life transitions, right? Many people in the work I do have come to me and said to me, listen, can you talk about this? Can you have a conversation on your show about what it means to have some kind of transition happen in your life? And I was curious about what that looks like and what it means to have life transitions. As a counselor, I know what I think, right? I know what I've learned in my education. But I wanted to bring someone to the show to have a conversation about it so there's an exchange, so that you can sit back and watch the exchange. Post your comments about this topic in the comments section, ask your questions, and get some feedback about what it means or what it feels like or what it is to go through some form of life transitions. We will talk more heavily about it in the part of the here and now, living, transitioning after that into the afterlife for whatever that means for you. But there are many ways to look at life transitions. But I want to bring someone who's an expert at this. I did my homework, I did the research, and I have to tell you, I liked what I found. So without further ado, I want to take the moment to bring in a great counselor by the name of Neil Beresin. Help me welcome Neil to the show, and let's get ready to have an awesome conversation. Hi, Neil. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Diamond.
I'm so glad you took the time to accept my invite and have this conversation. I think it's so well needed.
I'm
How
I'm happy to be here, and
awesome.
let the conversation begin.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, Neil, as you and I talked prior to today's show, I wanted to bring up a conversation that you are well versed in as it relates to life transition. And I would like you first to just, before we delve into that question, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you arrived to the space you are in rendering that kind of support to those who may be going through a transition?
You want the long or the short version,
I
Diamond?
want what's great.
Well, okay. So th- my counseling work is really an encore career. What I mean by that is it's something that started a few years ago after having done some work in the field of older adult services. So, services for older adults. It's a long career, which I won't get into the details of. But in 2014, my dear parents, died 4 weeks apart from one another. And the last, I would say, year of their life, I was with them every day. I wasn't their direct caregiver, but I was there for emotional and spiritual support. And after that experience, I realized that I was missing something, meaning that work with them, and I call it work, but the time I spent with them was so emotionally moving for me. I felt like I wanted to do it with other people as well. So I moved into actually to become a chaplain, and I became an interfaith chaplain and in 2019, and then worked in hospice for some time, and then moved into this counseling practice where I primarily focus on loss and life transitions.
Mm. So, can you just explain what interfaith mean as it relates to that? What is that for the viewers who don't understand what that is?
Oh, interfaith chaplain, I mean, really, chaplains today, if they're doing their work well, often are working with people of many different faiths
Mm-hmm.
and people who don't even belong or want to be part of any faith. So an interfaith chaplain just simply means that I've been trained like all chaplains to be able to work with anybody from any faith or that does not have any faith whatsoever.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So when Neil, when you say that, and wow, for me, such a traumatic situation to have lost both parents weeks apart from each other and spend a great deal of time just being with them through that process and actually observing the transition from where they were to where they were eventually go. Um, um, was that this is a strange question. Was that very challenging for you to go through that process?
Not a strange question at all. Thank you. Um, at times it was. Please know that having three siblings who were all contributing in some way or another to my parents' welfare was really helpful. And to be on the same page with them is an extraordinary gift. Often in these times of health challenges, you see siblings having deep separation, walls about decisions about life and death, about whether we terminate, someone from a machine that's keeping them alive. These kinds of things are often very difficult to discuss, and they push us in ways and pull us in ways in which we feel like we're at odds with each other. In my
Okay.
parents' situation, we were on the same page the whole time. It's a very rare gift. And so that gift for me was I wasn't doing it alone.
Uh,
And the
okay.
most important thing in all of this is that if we feel like we're doing it alone, it's really hard, really
Mm,
hard. When we feel like we have an ally or two, I often ask my clients, who do you have, who's on your team?
mm,
Not in a life and death situation per se, but who do you count as your ally?
mm.
These are important questions to really gauge, do people feel like they have allies?
So, having your siblings on this journey that your parents were taking, if we can say that, um, uh, this journey that they were taking from here to uh, where they were to go, right? Because I understand, and you can correct me in the way you work. Many people see the life transition to be very different. Some people think they're going one place. Some people think it's no place. Some people think it's this and that. When you say that you have worked with many people, even people who don't have faith, can we just take it back for a second? When you say you're a chaplain, are you a chaplain and I know you work based on what you're saying, my understanding, you work with people who may not have faith, but are you working from a premises of someone with faith?
So let me explain a little bit. First of all, let me separate the chaplaincy work from the counseling work.
Yes.
Okay? It's really important for people to understand this. As a counselor, if you're my client, Diamond, you wouldn't necessarily know that I was a chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you want to speak about God or religion or a higher power, I'm willing to do that, but I'm not leading with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing I think you should understand. In terms of my own faith, my faith is not, I mean, it's always going to impact my relationship with somebody, but it's not going to be part of a conversation per se unless someone directly says, what is your faith?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a faith in a higher power? Then I would answer them as honestly as I could,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not really going to be necessarily part of the conversation. Now, some of the people I work with are dying. They have a diagnosis of stage 4 kidney cancer, for instance. God may come up, a higher power may come up, faith in something may come up. And when I said faith earlier, I meant faith in a type of God or in a religious tradition. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
meant by that.
Sure.
Okay, but we
Sure.
could have faith in our family, faith in something we do every day.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be a faith that doesn't represent something that's otherworldly or something that we find difficult to understand.
Yes, and thank you for clarifying that.
Sure, sure.
I wonder, someone who is transitioning and they're on their bed of affliction, whatever that may be, and they know that the time for them is near, right? And they are saying, I need to talk to someone. And that person may come to you and say to you, out of curiosity, what do you believe in? Right. And I get you saying that they'll leave. What do you believe in? Because have you ever run into the situation where people need someone to be an ally to what they believe in so that they can have a full understanding of the process?
I think I understand where you're coming from. You should know that many people, and it's really more in hospice that I was working with people who are dying, even though
Okay.
as a counselor now
Mm-hmm.
in private practice, I have clients
Mm-hmm.
who are, I wouldn't say they're actively dying, but they are in a final stage of life for sure.
Okay.
And they may be much younger than we would, it's somewhat shocking and confounding. Um, yes, in the hospice work I did, there, I want to say that there were few people who said, I want to know what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you might, Diamond, which is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful that you would want to ask that. Um, I can support anybody and their faith, no matter what their faith is, what their belief is in an afterlife or not. I can support them in that.
Mm-hmm.
It almost doesn't matter what I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can, what it is in those situations, meaning in hospice situations when someone has 6 months or less to live, this is about walking with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about how do you walk with them and allow them to have the most dignity they can have.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is not about a discussion about usually about philosophy or spiritual positions.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what can I do to support you in the deepest possible way.
Why do you think that individuals do not seek someone during this time?
Sometimes they're too weak to, literally too weak to be able to advocate for themselves in this
Mm-hmm.
way. So it's left to their families.
Mm-hmm.
Often, people will turn to their pastors or ministers or rabbis or others in other religious traditions. Um, so I think people do turn to chaplains. They do turn to religious leaders and they
Mm-hmm.
turn to neighbors and friends who hopefully have some wisdom and
So
some
I
ability to sit with them. Yes.
Yes, and I think that's been some of my viewers, if not the people I've come in contact with, their experience of not necessarily seeking a counselor, as that's the work you do.
Mm-hmm.
Also having the this title of being a chaplain. They oftentimes will go to their pastor, their rabbi, and have the conversation. The family will rally around the person that they've seek spiritual or whatever kind of guidance from. So that's been my experience. And in today's conversation, I wanted to introduce this other way or another platform that people may be seeking that side by side, that parallel person to walk with them, and they don't feel necessarily alone and can still receive the comfort. This leads into my conversational question to you: how do you bring the family into the fold? So if the person themselves is let's say they're not that weak and they are seeking out your services, someone that they believe is not a family member, don't have that those skills to kind of give them what they need. How do you bring in the family in that process? How do you
That's a
work with the
great that's a
family?
great that's a great question. So in my counseling practice, the people who have come to me who are not well are able to advocate for themselves. They're going to work still. They're not again, they're not even you wouldn't know that they were very sick yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's going to happen soon. Um, in those situations, if they've come to me and we will have discussions usually about the people that matter most in their lives, okay? But they will determine how much or how little I bring the family into this conversation.
Mm.
What I'm there for is to advocate for them and
Mm-hmm.
their needs. So
Okay.
my focus is them. They may say, for instance, a client has said, I don't know how to talk about this with my spouse.
Mm.
Now, in this situation, either I encourage a conversation between the three of us, or I advocate for him and I begin to help him build his skills or his ability or his inclination to bring her into a conversation gently
Okay.
about the things that he up to now hasn't been able to, he or she. He may not be able to ultimately. I'm not going to force anyone to do something they can't do. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it may be rather enriching for both of them if he can bring her into the conversation. It may not include me, or it may include me, depending on what he wants.
Thank you for sharing that because that really polished the thought I was having
Good.
of being it now is a little bit more clarity when I've talked to people who have lost especially have lost a significant other, a husband, a wife, and the family is struggling to actually let me use the family, the individual who is in the journey of transitioning, preparing themselves to transition, and afraid of the conversation or don't know how the conversation with the significant other, the things that were unsaid, and they don't want to leave those things unsaid,
Mhm.
and that person left in the dark about it. Wow, that's it really brings a couple of people that I had conversations with who didn't have that, and they still are struggling in the loss of that after
Sure.
many years not having, and I don't know if it's necessarily a good word to use, closure.
And you're really speaking, from my perspective, what you're speaking of now is is really from the family member to the one who's dying. The closure, there could be closure going both ways, but often the person who is dying, they're not, it's more common that the family member who's struggling with the person, struggling with their own emotions around the person who's dying, is the one who is looking for closure, is
Mm,
looking for a way to have a conversation or more than one in which they can say things that they've never said before,
mm.
hopefully healing things. So
Wow.
when you were talking, I was thinking more from the perspective of the family member who is witnessing the death of their significant
Sure.
other.
Yes, sure.
And as you know, my example was from the person who
From the
reached
person.
out, who was actually dying, who was,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Do you think it's beneficial, and maybe that's not a good word to use, but I understand from your platform you're really working with the person who is in the process of transitioning, and if the family it can benefit or that person needs that support to say what it is or not say what they think, whatever it is that person needs, you're there to support them through the process of whatever that is.
Yes, I want to remind you that it's a subset of my clients. My other clients are struggling with grief and loss and life transitions um, that have happened to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? That have, one was, one might have been 50 years ago and another was 6 days ago. Okay. It's not just death. It's, as we spoke before the show, it's transitions, life transitions. I've lost some status. I lost a job. A relationship. I lost a relationship. I've lost. I'm transitioning from high school to college. These, if they're lucky enough to be able to go to college, these kinds of even middle school to high school,
Mm-hmm.
these kinds of transition can be really hard, really hard, and people don't recognize that they can be very difficult.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up because I believe that
Sure.
to the viewers who are going to be watching today's show, this show is not, this conversation is not to the goal is not to bring you to a place of brokenness or sadness. It's actually to bring you to a place of awareness and an awakening, right? When it comes to transitions. I'm glad that you actually brought up the conversation, the part about transitioning from elementary junior high school, because I want to glide into that before we, get to the end of our conversation of what that looks like when it comes to life transitions. Because I believe a lot of people that have come to this show and posted comments, many of the viewers have watched this show have had some form of life transition. Something transitioning, whether it was, I have individuals right now who come to me for services, or I've had conversation transitioning from a marriage that was once happy to a marriage that is going in divorce, and the journey of that is very difficult and very hard to carry. So if you can speak a little bit about that kind of conversation or working with, what does that look like?
That's a big question, Diamond.
Sorry.
Do you? It's no, it's fine. I'm not sure what your question is. Are you asking, can I describe clients and situations and how these transitions have worked themselves into their lives and what it means for them? Is that the kind of thing you're looking for?
So let me clarify too. So yes,
Please.
someone is in a marriage, and they've been in a marriage for 15 years, 18 years. And this marriage for them, the word they may use is dissolving. It's become sour. It's become painful to maintain. And one person wants this marriage to work even though it's broken, and the other person wants to transition from the marriage to divorce. That is what I'm asking you. How do you work with that?
Okay.
Yes.
I want you to first to know that I am not a couples therapist or
Okay.
counselor. However, people have come individually with me who are in difficult relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in those situations, I'm working with them really to help them determine whether this is over, this relationship is over,
Mm-hmm.
or there's more work to be done.
Mm.
What is the potential for this relationship to continue to move forward, or to find a path forward is really the better words.
Right.
Um, what what it what is speaking to your heart and soul? How do we find that? Help you find that, because often people are made up of lots of parts. One
Mm-hmm.
part is saying, "I gotta get out of this," and another part is saying, "But hang in there, because if you get out of it, you've given up." Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just two of many parts that are competing. And they often literally have these conversations. Well, and this one part speaks and says, I'm done. I'm done. And the other part says, again, if you give up, you have given up on something that you've been in for 15 years. Do you realize that you may not meet someone else? You may be very alone. So you are grappling with very almost terrifying things, like being alone for several weeks, if not months, if not years, saying goodbye to someone who you once loved a lot. Maybe you have people in common that you love as well. And those relationships in these transitions will change. And so there's more that you have to deal with. It's not just this one person, it's the system of people that are connected to you and this other person.
How does someone distinguish when you identify or notify them that you're not a marriage counselor or therapist there, and that is not the position you're taking in the conversation? However, as a counselor myself, I know that if I'm being a motivational speaker and empowering people, or a life coach and empowering people to live their best authentic life, and they may bring up some challenges they may have, when I'm taking off my clinical hat, I'm different from you, because being the counselor, on a different perspective, how do you get them to understand that the support you're giving them is not coming as a therapist or a counselor? Because I know people can mix that up. It says, well, you sound like a counselor, and this sounds like counseling, and it sounds like you're talking about that. So how do you help them distinguish?
I want to make sure you understand, I am a counselor. I'm
Yes,
just not a
got
couples
that.
counselor. Okay. I
And
don't do, right.
and
Go
now
ahead.
and the viewers or the consumer who may come to you will hear you say that. But I don't know if you would agree with me. I know you can tell a consumer, this is not my title, even though we're talking about this, so I don't want you to misunderstand what my strong suit is, my position is, where I can come from. I know some people can internalize hearing good clinical information or
Right.
support,
Right.
internalize that as counseling still.
Right.
So
Right.
you, even if they're talking
Let,
about marriage
yeah,
counseling.
let me back it up a little bit, because your
Please.
question is a good one, but I think that there's some things that I need to say before that. My work is less about advising people
Uh-huh.
and more about helping people find things that resonate inside them.
Mm-hmm.
So let me explain further.
Thank you.
The work is often experiential.
Mm-hmm.
And what I simply mean by that is, if I was working with you, Diamond, right now, um, you know, the first thing we would have to, I would really want to know, how can I be most useful to you? Sometimes one of my first questions. But another useful question is, what is pushing and pulling you right now, right? And then, and so as you go down this road, if people are ready, and usually they are if they're coming to you, right? They're going to say, well, for instance, every time my spouse goes on a business trip, I get angry. Okay, so right now you've got all that you need. What you've done, what you're now going to do is, you're going to, as a counselor,
Mm-hmm.
you're not there for advice now. You're just there to go with them and help them take you into their experience of
Mm-hmm.
anger, right? Take me take me into your world when that happens, the last time that happened. Now I'm just walking with them in that world.
You're allowing them to
What
lead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're leading me in that world
Mm-hmm.
of anger, so that we can understand everything about it, what it feels like in their bodies, what it smells like. That sounds weird, but what it tastes like,
Mm-hmm.
what its shape is, what its color is. That is helping them explore themselves. And maybe, if they're lucky, more than lucky, bump into things that they don't even know about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
which is the unconscious world that we all carry but aren't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to take a step back to explain, and I hope that helps a little
It's
bit move
appreciated.
you
Yep,
towards where
absolutely.
you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
having you shine more light in that question, or the questions that's being asked, help the viewers understand the difference in when they are, what they are, when they're in a situation and what that situation looks like, and the expectations, because I've experienced people coming into services with me and would have an expectation. And when you take them on this journey, and when I say take them on this journey, you create a safe space so that they can take the journey. And I always tell people all the time, listen, you are the pilot and I am the co pilot. Where you go, I'll go with you. I'll go. And we would just explore that situation together. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about transition, whether it was life to death, whether it's marriage to divorce, whether it is uh, transitioning from youth to senior, that is a whole thing in itself, of getting
Mm-hmm.
older, and the fear of that.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to walk away, and viewers, and I'm talking about you. I really want you to walk away, and I really want you to think about this conversation in the context by way it's being explained. Don't assume anything. Just take it for what it is right now and let it marinate, because these are some things that I was wondering myself. How do we look at life transitions? And when we're looking for someone to help us through the process, what is it that we supposed to be looking for from that person? So if I'm seeking you, Neil, to help me through a transition of whatever it may be, I may necessarily not know. Well, I don't know what it is. I just know I need to talk to someone. And I am angry and I am frustrated. And
Mm-hmm.
you, the professional, have identified, okay, well, let's go to that angry space. And I'm just thinking I'm going to come there and just vent and just vomit all over the place. Okay. And just that's what I needed to do.
Right.
That's where I've run into a lot of people who don't understand. And a lot of people aren't, and I use the word lot of people because I don't know a lot of people, right? This world is very big and I don't know everyone,
Right.
right? So the people I have come in contact with and have had these kind of conversations don't know what they're looking for. And a lot of people who come to me, not even necessarily are coming to me willingly. They're kind of the invisible force is pushing them there. So they're not walking and looking to hire or contract with someone or get a service in the way that you sit in your position and able, when you're ready, I'm here to just, I'm here. I'm here. And I want people to know that these kind of services do exist.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who are very skilled and knowledgeable in helping them through the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, Something resonated when you were talking just now. Yes, the advantage I have, perhaps, Diamond, is that people choose to come to me. They're not dragged,
Mm-hmm.
forced, or otherwise made to come, however that happens. That's a beautiful thing. But I do get clients who are just spilling out
Mm-hmm.
with emotion. Okay. And I will listen just like you do. Um, and at some point, we want to do work around that. In other words, in our somehow we have an idea. We, when I say we, culturally,
Mm-hmm.
people in the world, even though I don't know all the people in the world, just like you, somehow people in the world have an idea that if I just spill my guts, I'll feel better. My sense is that that's only temporary, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'll feel better, a little bit better now, but I have to go back and face everything that my life is about when I leave you,
Right.
when I leave the counselor. So I'm going to let you spill your
Mm-hmm.
beans, spill your emotions, and but we're going to do it and pace it. I think is the word, pace it. We're going to slow it all down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to I can't. I mean, I'm not going to be able to handle emotionally if you're spilling it at a rate that I can't handle. I'm going to slow you down for me, but
For
I'm
sure.
mostly going to slow you down for you. What happens when you say those words? I noticed your face changed, slowing everything down to a point where it sounds like it's a slow motion film.
Mm-hmm.
It is. We're moving too fast in our bodies and in our minds. And so part of the work of a counselor is slowing it all down.
Yeah, I've run into many people who look to get it all out and believe that's the process of getting it out and just saying it and spilling it every place, and hear a few words and be like, okay, I got it. Thank you so much. I now I understand this when truly they don't understand it, right? Slowing
Mm-hmm.
it down and not uh, running the process so quickly because we're missing a lot of important steps in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
And
interesting.
right, and understanding is not a cognitive or a head understanding. It's a heart and a somatic. It's a body understanding.
Mm,
Coming to that understanding takes work. It's not, I get what you just said, counselor, or I'm going to tell you all the things and then you might tell me something and I've got what I need. That's a cognitive thing. That often doesn't lead to much change, real change.
wow. So interesting you say that because when someone is thinking they got it here,
Yes.
because oftentimes that's what people do. I heard it, I got it.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the body getting it,
Mm-hmm.
how do you help someone recognize that, hey, wait, 1 second. I so you say you got it, but you the counselor is realizing but they haven't gotten it. Even when you're slowing it down, how do you help them pull that back a little bit?
There's a word that's often used, and I think it's overused. It's called how do you, let's talk about grief for a bit, okay? How
Yes.
do you process, like, what do you need to do to be comforted around grief other than, holding someone's hand and walking with them? What else can be done?
Mm,
Um, so we talk about processing. This word is often used.
mm-hmm.
Processing. the emotional experience of death when someone died, and processing the relationship one
Mm.
had with that person.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Processing it is not just about you dumping. This is a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also here as the counselor. So we are doing this as a dyad, walking together as you process. And so this is a very simple answer. You go back and forth reflecting on what was just said, what you heard,
Mm.
to move them to a deeper and deeper place of understanding. That deeper place often involves the body.
Mm.
That's a
Okay.
short answer. It's
Mm-hmm.
much longer than that.
I get it. Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay.
I get it.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's so interesting. Um, I'm smiling because, I'm going to be walking away with this whole thing. I get it. Of course, it's in practice in my 9 to 5 job. And I'm not going to go into details about what my work entails. Many of the viewers who come here are aware of that. But I'm glad you, Neil, actually said and shared that it's not just here, but it's all over here. It's everything about what makes you you. From the heart, the mind, the fingers, it's everything. Because we feel not just here, we feel all over,
Right.
you
And
know?
I would add this too. It's you callers should know this. To go into our bodies and know what our bodies are feeling, the felt sense, is really hard for people who have had trauma.
Mm,
Small or larger traumas, small t traumas, large t traumas, small t traumas, a lot of badgering and being yelled at as a child. That might be small, that might be large. Physical abuse, small, could be small. It's really large. Like large trauma is very common, I'm sorry to say. And so we, what we do to protect ourselves when that happens, which is all unconscious as a child, is to disassociate ourselves
mm,
from the experience to protect ourselves. One thing we do is we go into the world of numbness to protect ourselves because the feelings are overwhelming. So, body work, what we call somatic work, I'm not an expert, I'm studying it, I'm trying to get better at it,
okay.
is work that has to be done with people who are skilled, who know how to work with people who've been traumatized. Because often they can't find their bodies and they don't want to because it's too scary and
Mm,
anxiety provoking.
wow.
It's not an easy process, it's a painful process.
Wow. Wow. Deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people sadly don't ever reach that place of understanding.
No, no. And we don't have a lot of people who are trained in trauma and or somatic work.
Mm,
And so
wow.
people don't have access to counselors who know how to do that work.
Yeah, that or just it's those certain demographic areas of people who don't even have someone to even call a counselor, let alone get to that level of counseling.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
It's very sad and difficult.
Yes, it
On
is.
a uh, on a lighter note, before we wrap up this last couple of minutes, I want to ask you about your poetry. So I did some research on you and read, and I'm like, wow, okay. And how, if you can share your about your poetry and how you bring that into the work you do.
Of course. So, as a chaplain, I carried a book with me. One is what it had in it was prayers from many different traditions, traditional prayers, tr- prayers that were often stated in a religious institution or when there was something serious going on, and prayers of comfort and sustenance, right? But I also carried poems. I started collecting them. When I found a poem that I thought spoke to the human condition in a very deep and beautiful and accessible way. When I
Mm-hmm.
say accessible, I mean the language wasn't too difficult. I would copy it and paste it into my notebook. Over 2 years, I had close to 400 poems copied into my notebook.
Wow. Okay.
So as a chaplain, I would often use them in the middle or the end, mostly the end of sessions, as a gift back to the patient. I would read them slowly. They were used for several reasons. One is to hear beautiful words,
Mm-hmm.
to slow down time, uh, to give a gift to the patient, back to the patient. These were some of the reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I would read it in the middle of the session if someone was moving too fast. I thought for their own good, I would slow it down and read a poem very slowly. Sometimes, if someone was having a hard time speaking to me for whatever reason, poetry might be an interruption, a way to save grace, to save them from having to speak too much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me read a poem to you, just to let it settle, let it sit, let's see what it does. It wasn't to interpret poems; it was
Mm-hmm.
to let them be and let them rest on you and see how they impacted you. And sometimes people would say, "Oh my God, you reminded me of this in my life from that poem." So
Mm-hmm.
that would be an
Okay.
opening to something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in my counseling practice, they're often read at the end of sessions also. I think they're a gift to my clients. I think they're a way to say, I heard you, because I don't select a poem before the counseling session is over or before it starts. I select it at the end. I know where my poems are. Now I don't go into my book because I have my phone. I go into my phone and I go into my writing file and I find one. Often it's one that I've used in the last 20 days with another client, but it's something I find that's personal, that's connected to their story in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It might be sweet if I read a short one to you that I might have read to a client in the last 5 days. Would that work for you?
Please do.
Would you like that?
Absolutely,
Okay,
please.
I did. Okay, so let me find one. So I'm with you and you're my client, and I'm thinking actually about this conversation.
Okay.
Okay, this specific conversation. I'm not
Sure.
role playing it. And I'm thinking, okay, I've had this lovely conversation with you. Um, what might be a poem that somehow resonates with you and feels like it somehow speaks to our conversation and what happened here today? And I'm going to find one. Okay, this is the one that I'm choosing to read to you.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. And this is my gift to you. I don't always introduce it that way, but I'm introducing it to you that way.
I
It's
accept
called,
it.
oh, good. Thank you for accepting it. I see your smile, so I know you have. The most important thing is the name of the poem. The
Okay.
most important thing. And it's by Julia Fenrenbacher. I am making a home inside myself, a shelter of kindness where everything is forgiven, everything allowed, a quiet patch of sunlight to stretch out without hurry, where all that has been banished and buried is welcomed, spoken, listened to, released. A fiercely friendly place I can claim as my very own. I am throwing arms open to the whole of myself, especially the fearful, fault finding, falling apart, unfinished parts, knowing every seed and weed, every drop of rain has made the soil richer. I will light a candle, pour a hot cup of tea, gather around the warmth of my own blazing fire. I will howl if I want to, knowing this flame can burn through any perceived problems, any prescribed perfectionism, any lying limitation, every heavy thing. I am making a home inside myself where grace blooms in grand and glorious abundance, a shelter of kindness that grows all the truest things. I whisper hallelujah to the friendly sky. Watch now as I burst into blossom.
Wow. What beauty is that? I'm sure, without a doubt, I would be watching my own show repeatedly to partake of what a beautiful gift that poem is. And I'm sure what I heard, which was like melody to my ears, I need to feed on that repeatedly to get it, to consume it. And I'm hoping that the viewers themselves will play back and watch this show repeatedly and partake of this poem that was shared, because I'm sure that in it we can find some solace, some peace, some joy, some rays of sunshine. Whatever it is you walk away from that poem, it's meant for you.
You should know. You should know that I send poems to my clients after the sessions. And if you'd like me to send you this poem, I will. You can post it for yourself, or you can just use it individually for yourself, not for your show. It doesn't matter. You decide what you want to do.
Please, absolutely send that poem.
Please.
I was saying to myself, okay, when I get to the end of this, I got to write down the author. I don't know. You can just send it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So, Neil, please tell the viewers where they can find you if they're in need of your services, how they can reach out, so forth and so on.
Sure. So really, my website is the way to go. It's griefandlosssupport.com, griefandlosssupport.com, all one word. That's probably the best way to reach out to me.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm in other social media places, but I don't actively use them.
Okay.
So if you can probably find me on Facebook, but this is the best way.
So let's the viewers please do yourself a great, beautiful favor and go over to the website that Neil just provided, especially if you're in need of services or you know someone who could benefit from this services, from this support, from this wonderful journey. And I'm going to call it a wonderful journey. And I'll say that because many of us, and let me speak for myself. Someone as a child didn't understand the transitioning from the here and the now, but have seen a lot of it. And as I grew into the woman I am now and have been from a very big family and a great number of peers and friends, and the transition from them being here and no longer here. And that's what drove this conversation today. The recent many passings of friends and family members who had transitioned from here now, and how to process my own feelings, how to help other people process those feelings. And I'm hoping that this show will just be some kind of support or aid to you as you think about how to move closer to how you want to deal with that, should deal with that, or what you need to do. Whatever it may be, I'm hoping this show is a key of unlocking some of that space for you. I just want to thank Neil Beresin so much for joining me today on today's show. I hope that you guys would definitely watch the show and share it. Neil, stay right there for a second. Okie dokie, let's say. Okay, viewers, thank you so much for joining me here. Do me a favor, go to www.voicesgathering.com. If you want to send me a private direct message, you can send it to diamond@voicesgathering.com, and let's have a conversation. If you're in need of those services, the website information was provided in today's show. You can reach out and get your services and needs met that way. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up. I can't see anyone giving this show a thumbs down. And since I've been up and running, we haven't had that. So give us a thumbs up. Make sure you follow us on all those social media platforms. And do us a favor. Show up every time and come and have a conversation with me. Until next time, be good, be well. And I can't wait to talk to you again. See ya. Have a great one. Bye.